Last 166 on the golden doves. We are somewhere in the middle of section 4, page 94 on the top of the page. Haggadah. So we did what halakha is. You all understand what halakha means. Haggadah from the root nun gimel dalet, nagad. To tell, to narrate, to declare, right? Like in the Mitzvah Bikurim, Higgadti Hayom, I'm making the following declaration, right? Designates an utterance in which the speaker uses his own words. So that's the key. There is no set formulation or composition of words. Rather, there's a concept, there is an idea, there's an experience, and the speaker can express that idea, that concept, that experience as he wishes to express it, rather than the words of another or a formulated text. It usually relates to a visual or auditory experience, conveying thereby the notion of showing and letting hear. Interesting. So when you're magid, you're relating what you experience, whether at the auditory level or at the visual level. Whereas amar, to say, introduces a direct quotation or reproduces an exact formula, like Vayomer Adonai and Moshe lemor, or Vaydaber Adonai and Moshe lemor. So lemor means these are the words that you have to use in teaching this lesson. So it's a direct quotation. In contradistinction to that, Higid is a report or description of an event or utterance of what happened to me or the speaker, whoever the speaker is. And my father brings in the footnote here. It's worth taking a look at the footnote where he brings Pesukim from Perashat Vayigash, which soon we will be reading. So chapter 45, Pesukim 9 through 11, where Joseph tells his brother to deliver to their father a precise message. So if you look at chapter 45, in verse 9, the pasuk says, "Maharu va'alu el avi." Hurry up, go to my father. It says, "Va'amartem elav." Amartem, speak. Ko amar. These are the words. It means we're saying these words and we're quoting Yosef. Samani ko amar bincha Yosef. Samani Elohim le'adon l'chol Mitzrayim le'ra ela el ta'amod. Then later on in pasuk Yud Gimel it says, "V'higatem le'avi et kol kavodim Mitzrayim." Very, very, very precise when it comes to describing what you saw, the honor that I have, the respect that I have in Egypt. That's a personal experience that you relate in your own words, right? Amazing how these ideas, it works so perfectly, right? The technical terminology that my father is explaining, just mamash, it's a key to understanding the Torah. In verse 26, the brothers tell, now, if you look now, when the brothers return, it says, "Vayagidu lo lemor od Yosef hai, v'chiu Moshe b'cholez v'sayim." That's the way they relate the kavod. They relate it in their own words, and they say he is the ruler of Egypt. He is a Moshe. That's how they relate the kavod that Yosef gets. So they tell Jacob something which he refuses to accept, right? So at first, it says, "Ki lo ha'emin lahem." He doesn't accept it, right? Then the pasuk says, right? Then the pasuk says, "Vaydaberu," the words of Joseph, which Jacob recognizes as genuine and therefore accepts. Now, when the brothers relate the amirah, the precise words that Joseph said, these are the words I want you to say, Yaakov Avinu recognizes those are the words of his son Yosef, and then he believes them. You see the thing? So it says, "Vaydaberu elav kol divrei Yosef asher diber alehem," and then "Vatahir ruach Yaakov avihem." Also in Megillat Esther, consider Esther chapter 2, where Esther is told by Mordechai, and she says that "Vatomer lamelech b'shem Mordechai." So when the person relates to her what Mordechai wanted to give to Esther, the message, it was Vayaged. But when Esther says it, she says it precisely in the words. Vatomer lamelech b'shem Mordechai, right? Likewise in Esther, okay, in context, okay. The explanation given by the rabbis to the verse. Thus you will say to the house of Jacob, Ko tomar lebet Yaakov v'teged libnei Yisrael. This is right before Ma'amad al-Sinai, or during Ma'amad al-Sinai rather. Underscores the distinction between these two terms. Thus you will say, Ko tomar, right? Thus, in the holy language. Thus, in this order. Thus, in this sense. Fantastic. Amash works perfectly, right? Thus, that you should neither subtract nor add to it, right? And this is all from the Mechilta of Rabbi Ishmael, by the way, right? And tell to the children of Israel, the word teged, that you should be meticulous with them and tell it to them, right? But not in the same words. You see, you may add, you may subtract in the language that you use. This last point becomes evident when one considers that since Vataged pertains to the sense of the utterance, one must be meticulous and particular in the elaboration of details when telling it to others, right? Because if you're saying it in your own words, so be meticulous in describing the details of what it is that you're describing, right? I see a misprint here, so I'm just going to fix it, right? All right, I'm sorry about that. Getting back to the main text, we were in footnote 40, now we're back in the main text. To indicate the precise wording of an Agadah utterance, lemor, saying, or a similar term is appended, right? Right? So teged lemor means when you say this Haggadah in your own words, but be precise, right? Let's see if there's a footnote here, right? Okay. Higid also designates a pronouncement made by an authority that stands on its own and does not need to refer to the authority of another. So another sense of Higid is that the person who's speaking has the authority to say what it is that he is saying, and therefore he can be Magid these words. Right, the sense of both telling, Nagid, prince, and that's how you word Shemuel HaNagid, the prince, because the prince has the authority to speak. Ruler conveys this notion of authority. Right. Now, in the Talmud, you say the Talmudic expression Nagdeh, he punished him for the execution of chastisement by the rabbinic authority. So Nagdeh means to punish, because to punish you have to have the authority to do so. Likewise, Neged, usually meaning in front of, can also convey the notion of authority, and therefore may mean under the authority or supervision of. Right. The sense of both telling in one's own words and pronouncement of authority converge to constitute the meaning of authoritative or genuine interpretation, right? So you have the idea of lehagid, which means in your own words, but you're a magid, or nagid rather, and because you're a nagid, you have the authority to speak, right? So these two ideas, they converge, and we have from here a genuine interpretation, right? Hence the sense of the title of the commentary of the Mishneh Torah by Rabbi and Vidal de Toledo, Magid Mishneh, right? So I'm going to say in my own words, but I'm coming as a Nagid to tell you what the thing, because he's giving the authority in the sense of Harambam's, because he brings the sources of Harambam. You see, so he's the Magid, because he's giving you the authority for where Harambam gets the rules for. Yes. All of these nuances, plus the sense of testimony, coincide in the commandment to tell, the higavta. So you are relating to your children as the father, and therefore you have the authority to relate, because you received it from your father, right? And you're going to transmit it to your children, so you become the nagid of your children, and you tell them in your own words what happened, as if although you were a witness to what took place. Hence, The Haggadah is to be narrated on the first night of Pesach. This is also, and that's why you have the Haggadah. The Haggadah is that which the Nagid, the father, tells his children in his own words, and that's what the Haggadah. Of course, we read what it says, but the mitzvah is to discuss it with the children in a way that they would understand it. And look at, and my father brings in the footnote that when Rambam brings in Sefer Mitzvot, the mitzvah v'higata, according to the eloquence of the narrator. You see? All right. In a manner that would be understood by one's children, that is to interpret. So you also become the interpreter of the experience. Hence, the Haggadah is to be narrated on the first night of Passover. This is to be understood in contradistinction to the commandment of teaching the children by repeating the text. That's completely different. V'shenantam lebanecha, where you have to repeat word for word, letter for letter, right? Proper vocalization, proper pronunciation, right? That's v'shenantam. Right, semantically, Higit parallels the Latin term dicere, which means to pronounce, and showing verbally the right authoritative way. So that's the term in Latin. And we'll read the footnote 49. See Emil Benveniste for other similar terms. Aramaic, hava, to show, right? You see that in the Gemara, which translates Higid in the Targum Ankara. It's a very so Hava in Aramit and in the Talmud is Keneged Higid. So that means to point out with emotion, something illustrating the case in question, like, oh, right? Megillah, Makot, on this term, Siyad Malachi, okay. And in Job, you have Ahvati, stands for my word, my speech. Amazing.